Hi, I'm Kevin Malloy, Town Councilman, Town of Smithtown. You're watching Smithtown Report. Enjoy the program.
Born in the tropical waters of the Caribbean Sea on October 22, 2012, Tropical Storm Sandy gave little early indication of the death and destruction it would cause just a week later. As the storm churned ominously up the Atlantic coast in the days before Halloween, some weather trackers began calling Hurricane Sandy Frankenstorm because this hurricane looked particularly scary, even monstrous. Hurricane Sandy made landfall on the evening of October 29, 2012. Though no longer a hurricane, post-tropical Superstorm Sandy packed a potent combination of ferocious winds, downed trees, and storm surge floods that knocked out power to 7.6 million homes and businesses in 15 states across a band stretching from Maine to the Carolinas. The town of Smithtown did not escape the storm's wrath. On Tuesday, October 30th, the town of Smithtown resembled a debris-strewn war zone as Sandy left unprecedented damage in its wake. In the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, the town of Smithtown was left with the daunting task of a huge cleanup at a huge cost. Supervisor Patrick Vecchio estimates that it will cost $5.3 million for Sandy's cleanup. FEMA will reimburse the town of Smithtown approximately 75 to 80% of Sandy's final cleanup cost. On this episode of Smithtown Report, we will take a look at the enormous task of the cleanup and the efforts to restore the town of Smithtown back to normal. This was one of the most powerful storms to hit Long Island in the last 100 years. When it made landfall, the combination of a full moon and a high tide led to a record 13-foot storm surge. The Department of Public Safety, led by John Valentine, coordinated the emergency and cleanup recovery efforts 24/7. The Department of Public Safety consists of 6 operating divisions: fire prevention, park ranger, investigation, waterways and navigation, technical services, and emergency management. The department is responsible for the uniformed enforcement and security activities within the town. The department serves an area of 54 square miles with a population of over 160,000. During and after the storm, the Department of Public Safety's Emergency Management Unit worked around the clock, integrating activities of its own divisions as well as those of local, state, and federal agencies. As part of this division, the department maintains a town-wide communications center, which, in the time of an emergency, is the hub of the Emergency Operations Center. On December 11, 2012, John Valentine met with Supervisor Vecchio and the members of the town board in a public work session to discuss the details of the storm recovery.
As far as the town goes, without a doubt, the town of Smithtown and all its resources pulled together and did a commendable job for our residents. It was seamless. All the departments worked very well together. And as a result of that, we were far more organized and far more ahead of any other municipality in the county, and I stand behind that totally. As far as LIPA goes and its cooperation with the town of Smithtown, it was second to none, and I think the reason was we were very critical of LIPA in the previous storm, and as a result of that, we kept pace with demands with LIPA and trying to establish guidelines and a working standard operating procedure with LIPA. Within the the first evening of the storm, we already had LIPA crews in place and were degenerating areas in the town that were critical for access and primary roads that would hinder our residents to affect any kind of emergency response from fire department, police department, or ambulance corps. LIPA was very responsive. By daybreak Tuesday morning, we had opened up a tremendous amount of roadways based on that degeneration. And that degenerizing, what happens is then that allows our work crews to go in there with machinery and work in a safe and prudent manner. Without those lines being shut down, we can't affect any response there because it's unsafe for the people that operate our equipment. So as far as LIPA goes in the town of Smithtown, without a doubt, we did work hand in hand. We had direct contact with them. It was positive. Where they fail, I think we all will agree, is their lack of communication, or lack of information with the public. Which brings me to probably, I guess, our Achilles heel is that we too share this communication issue with LIPA, not to their degree, but we do. We have in place our TV station, we have our computer links, all of which were updated regularly and provided information to the public. But as we know, most people had no electricity, had no TV, and computer access was intermittent at best within the first couple of weeks. The systems were overwhelmed, which isn't really a direct effect on us as far as responsibility goes, but just, nationally, this storm crippled the internet, and it crippled all those different cellular communications that we have at hand. As I've spoke to most of the board individually, I think the time has come to set up something very similar to what they have in rural America, in that they maintain AM and FM radio stations continually through the year for local, local updates for weather, in farm communities and such. And I think that regionally, we have to push the county and the state to join as partners and come up with some type of regional access, whether it be on old style AM radio or FM, whatever it might be, that each town has equal opportunity to put forth concrete information that's really prudent to the storm and not political rhetoric. Information out there that really will help the residents. We do a great job. We all come together. We exercise a very thorough plan, a very precise plan, but the residents a lot of times just don't know and don't understand what's going on. A lot of the residents judge what one is doing by the truck. I haven't seen the highway truck. I have not seen a LIPA truck. We definitely utilize every service we have available to get information out there, but it's dwarfed by these other more interesting or more played out events. But we still need that same airspace to make sure our residents know what's going on. The next thing is I really think it's important at the first of the year, there's some annual things that the board does collectively. I think one of the things that should be done is the board should most definitely remind department heads that we do have a town emergency plan. And as such, they have very specific and direct bullet responsibilities in that plan, bare minimum. And that they should make sure that when they do get the annual plan, the updates, that they don't just, put it as a shortcut on their computer screen and not review it. The next thing to move on to would be what are the financial ramifications of this storm and where we're going to go with that. I just want to point out to the board that unequivocally this storm outpaces Irene 3 to 4 times. The debris management aspect of it alone has been a daunting task. We requested and received very early on resources from the feds. We were obliged a considerable amount of resources based on past history and how we do exercise our plan. So there were huge assets that were provided by the feds. I guess the one that stands out the most was the long hauling of debris and the processing of unprocessed debris.
The Town Highway Department worked diligently in its cleanup efforts. The Highway Department picked up and processed between 1,500 and 1,700 tons of storm debris per day. The town processed the debris at 2 different town facilities. At the town waste yard on Mount Clair Avenue, trucks steadily brought in cut up trees and debris. They loaded the debris into a giant tub grinder, which grinds up trees into a fine sawdust-like material, and it's put into piles. The town also processed debris at the Municipal Services Facility in Kings Park, where trees and debris were also ground up. With the staggering amount of trees that came down in the wake of the storm, the town yards were filling up faster than they could process the debris. The town of Smithtown initiated the help of the town of Brookhaven landfill, where thousands of tons of debris could be incinerated. The town of Smithtown also enlisted the aid of the New York State Department of Transportation to help with the transport of this debris. In a coordinated effort, DOT trucks made the run from the town yards to the Brookhaven landfill. FEMA provided the Brookhaven landfill with 4 air curtain destructors. These small but powerful incinerators worked around the clock to burn the massive amount of trees and debris collected after the storm.
When all is said and done, we believe at this point, and we're still vetting through and processing all of our figures, we're getting out of that estimate stage and going to what the facts are, you're going to be looking at least $5.3 million. We're pretty confident that that's what this storm is going to cost us. The biggest component that we have right now left that we have to deal with, and I know part of that is contractual and we're going to deal with that in executive session, but we have hard figures, and I know you've all heard this repeatedly during this whole period. I tend not to go with these pie-in-the-sky calculations. I like to talk to our field people, whether they're department heads and out in the field or even subordinate personnel. I maintain a lot of contact with the boots on the ground field people. Those people give me real figures and real feelings and have a tremendous amount of historic knowledge as how we process these type of things. So right now, when all is said and done, with the assistance of the feds and the state and this long hauling operation, we're left with one major task, and that is about 15,000 tons of what they consider to be processed material. These are the shreds and the chips. To be quite honest with you, if we had a storm tomorrow, I wouldn't be so quick to process material. I would open up our secondary staging areas and look to get rid of unprocessed material, because the feds were very gracious to us in providing the ability to do that, and that was vis-a-vis a contract with Brookhaven Town for the burn curtains, the long hauling, and such. So now, right now, we have equipment idle, so to speak, that we can't use for this processed material. So at worst case scenario, at 15,000 tons at let's say, a prevailing rate of $75,000, you're looking at $1.25 million. At the low end, at the $10, you know, is vetted through the federal calculations, you're looking at $150,000. You know, accounting principles, although the same as far as auditing goes, there are different principles in place, you know, that FEMA uses over true accounting principles. So we have to combine those things so that Lou can brief the board as to, you know, where this money is going to come from. Some of the money is real money. Some of it is on paper and will be quickly offset by the feds or the state. But there are other factors that will not. We do have to pay contractors. We do have to pay leases. We, at some point, will have to make the town of Brookhaven whole as per our agreement. We will get reimbursed for that. But there are some hard figures out here that Lou has to vet through and brief the board as to how we're going to pay these things. So it's something that's not going to go away quickly, but I just really want to thank all the town employees. They did a tremendous job. They were there for us. They came to work. They worked the long hours. They put the time in, and they did it with a smile. We tried to interact as much as we could with our residents to get them the help. We personalized everything, and everybody basically put their life on hold for 4 weeks to clear this up for our residents. And I think if you just go just a little bit beyond Smithtown, you will visibly see the difference in how these other towns are. We are really in a good place right now.
The cleanup effort was a monumental task that took the cooperation of all the town's departments and residents. Public safety and the town of Smithtown will continue to study new ways to help in this process in case of another storm. You can visit the town of Smithtown's website at smithtownnewyork.gov and click on the link for hurricane preparedness. This will give residents helpful information and assist residents to be prepared as possible in the event of another major storm. We all learned a valuable lesson from Sandy, and while we hope this never happens again, if there is a next time, we should all be more prepared and take these storms more seriously. For Smithtown Report, we urge you to keep safe and stay informed.